Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino. My guest today is Keith Pepper. In 2020, Keith purchased a group of local newspapers and websites in his hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. With a combined circulation now of over 100,000 subscribers, Springs Publishing is the leading media organization in Metro Atlanta. Keith produces reported newspapers in neighborhoods like Sandy Springs, Buckhead, and Dunwoody, as well as the two newspapers, Atlanta In Town and Atlanta Senior Life. Keith has a 20-plus year career working at local and global organizations. He currently serves on the board of the Atlanta Press Club and was previously a member of the board of directors at Kate's Club. Now, here's Keith to tell us about his latest news. Keith, welcome to Business Notes, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Diane. It's great to be here.
You know, Keith, who buys a newspaper in 2021, and what were you thinking?
Well, even worse, it was 2020.
Right.
So not many people, but I feel very lucky to have moved back to Atlanta, which is where I grew up, and then went to high school, went to college at University of Georgia, and then I left Atlanta for a long time, for more than 2 decades, and never really lost touch with family and friends and the community here. And so when I wanted to get back and really try to find something that was more civic oriented for my career, I moved back to Atlanta in 2018, 2019. So pre-pandemic, and I was looking for a small business opportunity, looking for a way to get more engaged in the community. And I was introduced to Steve Levine, who had started the Reporter newspapers and then later acquired a couple of other titles. And Steve was looking to go to the next phase of his life and to retire. And he didn't have a ton of people, I think, that were looking to buy a newspaper, to your point. But once he and I started talking, it really rekindled my love of media. My first job when I was 16 years old was in radio in Atlanta. I worked all through high school, all through college. So I had a real strong base and foundation in the industry, and then had worked at some digital marketing and digital media companies over the last 2 decades. So when I saw what Steve had built and I saw the numbers, I really saw an opportunity, and I really got super excited about what was there. And so the answer is, on a broad scale, not a lot of people are looking to invest in newspapers or really in media at this time. But where we sit in what we call the hyper-local media space, there's a real opportunity and a real need, and it happens to be a growth space for the media world, both digitally and, believe it or not, in print.
So how do you see the revenue model evolving in the next 3, 5, or 10 years?
Right now, our revenue model is we're 100% ad supported. So we produce 6 free community newspapers that are distributed 2 different ways. So they're distributed, or really 3 different ways. They're distributed via direct mail to the communities that we cover in Metro Atlanta. So those are Sandy Springs, Dunwoody, Brookhaven, Buckhead, and then in town Atlanta. So basically from Midtown or the Amtrak station to Grant Park and Emory University over to the west side. So that area we call Atlanta in town. And then we also distribute those through, drops at local businesses. So cafes, restaurants, dry cleaners, grocery stores. Now that's gotten a little wonky during COVID because people weren't going out as much at the beginning. And then people didn't want to touch things. So that was a little weird at the beginning, but it seems to have recovered now. And then of course we distribute all of our content digitally. And that, to your question, sort of where the next phase of our revenue will go. So right now we're all ad supported, and we continue to grow. We've just set 2 records for my time being here in terms of monthly revenue, which is pretty exciting. So we're recovering and getting back to 2019 levels. I don't really look at 2020 as a comparison revenue wise. It was just so different, hopefully, and we'll be back to normal in those 2019 revenue numbers. But advertising is going to be our key driver, and for now that advertising comes from print because of the way that we distribute and because of the high quality products that we produce. it really works for advertisers. So it gets into people's homes through the direct mail. It's a real high quality print product. The color reproduction is top notch. So people are sitting back with products that they're not consuming otherwise. There is revenue to be had on digital, but it's much, much less, as you've probably read, than it is in print, because digital advertising tends to be fleeting. So we're looking at new ways to engage both readers and also provide our advertisers with solutions on the digital side. We've launched new email newsletters. So we're getting into people's inboxes, which is the new, which is really the new way to get information to them. So the first thing folks do in the morning is they wake up and they look at their phones. And so if we can be there, that's a great thing for us to be in their inboxes there. And then we're also looking at things like events, like merchandise. And then also there's a big trend going on with community media, with local media around we call the membership model. So if you think of NPR or PBS, it's similar to that, but we're not a nonprofit, but where we ask people to, to basically subscribe, to support our local journalism, but we give them things in return. So it may be merchandise, it may be t-shirts, it may be exclusive content. That's an area that we're really looking into in 2022 and beyond. So that will become a new revenue stream. We haven't tapped into that yet, but I do see that as being something that we'll grow into.
Right. And, you make a good point about print kind of hangs around longer, right? You lay it on the table and maybe you don't throw it away and you find it later. And I also want our audience to know that your company or newspapers have won some awards, as well as your staff. You have a very robust staff. Some of them have won awards. You probably have over 100 years of experience. So these are not like some fly-by-night youngsters that report on these newspapers, correct?
That's correct, but we welcome fly-by-night youngsters because we're looking to really produce the best content. And I you bring up a great point that I probably should have started with, is that none of this works if we don't produce content that people want to read. And so, we are all both producers of creators of news and information, but we're also consumers. And so, it's really, I grew up in a time when radio was getting corporatized and nothing was done without, tons and tons of research. And it took forever for something to actually get done. What's really exciting about what the opportunity that we have is that, we have the ability, and especially with digital publishing, to produce content, very quickly. And, certainly there are trends that, some of us may lament. Articles are certainly shorter than they used to be. Things are more, pop culture-y, lists. Those things, tend to perform better than really long, pieces on, a zoning board meeting, for example. But I think we need to do both. I think that, just because a list, may be punchy and tongue in cheek and not written in a way that, a journalist like William Safire, for example, may have written it, it doesn't mean that it's bad content. So I'm really, trying to focus on meeting our readers, where they are. We have a slide that we work off of internally that, we call the content that people crave. So that's real estate, food, arts and culture, and then the content that people need. So that's education coverage, local government, and then of course public safety is a major piece of what we cover.
That leads into my next question about what kind of news do you provide that your readers couldn't get elsewhere? And so you've named some of those things, but I would think that you'd be able to dig deeper. But tell me what else you provide.
Sure. I mean, we do provide that. So I apologize if I missed that piece earlier. I mean, there are city council meetings that happen in Brookhaven, that happen in Dunwoody, and places like Sandy Springs, that we may be the only media company that's covering those meetings. And so if we're not there, then there isn't someone to hold the public officials accountable. Just last night, in fact, we hosted a candidate forum. Sandy Springs has a municipal election coming up in 5 weeks from today. when we're recording, and there's 17 candidates that are running for 6 city council seats in a mayoral race. So we wrangled all 17 of those folks together for a 2-hour Zoom last night, where we gave the candidates the chance to answer questions in front of their constituents virtually. Now all of that content is on our website for people to go back and look at. And if we're not doing things like that, providing both a forum for voters to meet their candidates, then that may not get done for local folks. And so, there's a lot of coverage of what goes on in Washington. There's a lot of coverage of what goes on around the world. Whether or not that's consumed by people is a different story, but there are organizations that are doing that. But there aren't a ton of people that are covering, what happens at a Brookhaven zoning meeting or what happens at a Dunwoody Homeowners Association. So that's what we're providing for people that they're not going to get elsewhere. And then we do have we have a great roster of people that are contributing as writers, as photographers, that have tons of experience in media and local media. And so, it gives us a chance by being an independent community news organization. It gives lots of people a chance to reach, to do work that they might not have, that they've done before, but maybe they're in a different phase of their life and they want to just contribute one column a month. We're happy to have those partnerships and have those, to be a vehicle for those folks to, to do their great work. And yes, as you mentioned, we have won a bunch of awards from the Georgia Press Association, and it's great to be recognized by that organization because it's there's a lot of content that gets created on a daily basis, and I really believe if we do good content, that will rise to the top.
And you provide a great service for civic matters as well, so that's great. You have had a job, but I think you were also a consultant at one time. Did I read that correctly? So you have some entrepreneurial experience, but what has been some of the biggest learning things for you so far?
Well, yeah, I've never been a formal consultant, but I did in between when I moved back to Atlanta and wanted to sort of find what was next for me, and left a job where I was traveling around the world, almost every week. I wanted to sort of settle down and help some local companies. So, when I got into this, into this opportunity with Steve and making the transition and was able to, to purchase the company from him, I think the biggest, and this is my first, true entrepreneurial venture. And I think, the biggest lesson for me is trust your gut. I think that the things that I knew during the due diligence, the things that I identified and, maybe didn't smell right to me, but I said, oh, well, I'll take care of that. And, down the road, those were things that I probably should have taken care of up front. So, that's a really good lesson for me. I've been through a lot of acquisitions, both as the acquiring company and being acquired. And so I've always had the role in these companies as being the sort of integrator, working with new people, introducing them to our culture and vice versa. And I think in a big company, you can really kind of skate by and you can let things that, may be festering, they can just sort of get, someone else will take care of what needs to get done. But I'm really learned, I think, very quickly that in a small company, that doesn't really work. So you've got to, everyone's got to be on board. I think that, the saying, I don't know who, I'll butcher who said it. So I'll just know it wasn't me, but, the culture eats strategy for breakfast. I do think that if you surround yourself with people that share your view of what you can create, have a good attitude, and want to help move things forward, then that's the lesson that I learned very quickly, is to get those people around you so that you can do those things.
Small company things do come to the top much quicker with probably a greater impact.
Hard to hide. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, addressing the fact that some people do like to slow down and absorb the news slowly, and that is a good audience for print. Is that a behavioral thing or a generational thing? And is there enough people or a big enough audience to support in either of those areas to support a paper?
Yeah, there's definitely enough audience to support a hyper-local paper. I'm not sure there's enough audience to support a major metropolitan daily paper, but certainly a community, monthly, biweekly type of product, there certainly is enough audience to support, and there's a need. It's a great question about the generational thing. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm sure you've read stories that vinyl records have taken off and had their biggest years in the last couple of years, and there's lines outside of record stores again that was unfathomable when I was a teenager. If I had every one of my friends had said, "Oh, I wish I kept my parents' records." Now those are coming back. So I do think that there is this slow movement. Certainly is a thing, whether it's with food and cooking, but I think we're sort of probably living in a little bit of la la land if we think that, the next generation of readers is going to, be waiting for print newspaper or magazine. So, I don't look at it as that we're breaking news necessarily in print, but we are providing a really great quality experience that's getting, the way we deliver it, that's getting into people's homes. Through direct mail, right? There's no more, when I was growing up, we were a 3 newspaper household every morning, right? So the first thing you did when you woke up, either my father or usually me would walk to the end of the driveway and collect 3 morning newspapers. So that doesn't exist anymore. We're reading, breaking news is digital first. So we don't look at it as that we're breaking news in our print product, but we're using our digital assets, our websites, our emails, social media, our YouTube channel to get content into people's, into their hands, I guess, for lack of a better word, as it happens, as quickly as we can. And then we're using the print product, as a more lean back experience. It's got deeper stories. We've got briefs in there for people that may have missed things that are going on. I'm learning as I go through this process that, just because I am obsessed with the news and I've got 3 devices and know what's happening all the time, it doesn't mean that every consumer does. So I'm really learning that we're providing, audiences that don't get, that aren't on Nextdoor or social media all the time. We're providing them with information. I just wouldn't call it breaking news, in a monthly newspaper.
Yeah, right. So, Keith, how can the audience support what you're doing?
Well, the biggest way is to just engage with it, to read, to subscribe to our newsletters. So that's certainly a great way. You can support our advertisers, is always great. So we love when I hear from my advertisers that, so-and-so came in and said they read about us in the Reporter newspaper, or people tell us they saw this house in Atlanta in town. So supporting advertisers is always a great way to do it. Following us on social media. I mean, Instagram has really become the new front page of the paper. So if you think about, what's happening on the front page of 20 years ago when we looked at the paper, now that's Instagram for a lot of people, and certainly for the next generation of audiences. So I would say, following us on social media, subscribing to our newsletters is a great way. And then when you see the paper, if you don't live in one of our areas that gets the paper delivered and you see it out and about it at a deli or a restaurant you're at, pick it up and engage with it, and then let me know what you think. We're open to all suggestions. We don't have any delusions that we know all the answers, but we're having a ton of fun doing it. And our goal is to really cover, like I said, the things that we feel that people want to know, but also that they need to know. And we're focused on keeping it local and making sure that I'm not looking to build a massive startup organization. The sticky note on my computer that you can't see says meaningful, not massive. And I truly believe that if we can continue to cover the stories that people aren't getting from other places. And we can do that in a way that's non-sensational. And we can provide our advertisers with sensible marketing solutions to reach these audiences, which, as you know, living in Atlanta, many of these audiences are the most coveted audiences in Atlanta. Then we'll hit that mission, and we'll do it in a way that's sustainable. And I mean sustainable in that we're building a company that it will be profitable. So that's the goal.
Oh, great. And people can subscribe on your website. Is that correct?
The best place to go is reporternewspapers.net. There's a newsletter button there that they can subscribe to those newsletters. We do offer, I mean, if people do want to subscribe, we have a way that we can get you the paper sent to you for a nominal, subscription. But for the most part, everything is online for free. But yeah, sign up for our newsletters at reporternewspapers.net/newsletters, or just click the newsletters button. And those are products that we're really investing a lot in to make them, super valuable to readers, but also obviously to marketers to reach that audience.
Great. Keith, thank you so much for being with us today. And I think you have a unique way of making a living. And I appreciate you sharing that with the audience and for providing the service that you do provide.
No, thank you, Diane. I mean, the best part of this so far, when people ask me how it's going, is it is incredibly fun and engaging. And it's really checked so many boxes for me in terms of what I was looking for in a business, and also as a way to be civically engaged, both in a cultural way, a civic way, and then also corporately with the business community. So it's been real rewarding so far.
Right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Keith Pepper, owner of Springs Publishing. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.